Hey, welcome back to another video, folks. Thanks for tuning in again. As always, massively appreciative of you coming along. I've been getting messages on like email, Insta and all sorts that have been like so supportive that I'm just like truly grateful for. It's quite a big deal to me, like when I started doing these videos, kind of opening yourself up a little bit. And yeah, there's been a few silly comments or whatever, but for the most part it's been flipping ace, so massive thanks for all your help along the way. It's been flipping awesome. Today's video is from my attic, so it's probably got a training theme because that's what I tend to do, isn't it? I come to a spot I think is like remotely related to it. Flipping roasting up here today. I've had to shut the window because my neighbours are chainsawing something again. They must run out of things to chainsaw soon. I think they're just doing stuff they've already done, but I've had to shut the window and it gets really hot up here, so I'm trying to get this video done a bit on the quick side, which you'll be glad to know. You've seen the title of the video, right? It's about cake and training. If you're tuning in thinking I'm going to tell you how to eat cake and get strong, I'm afraid that's not quite what it is. Don't know if you guys remember, there's a thing in the press some years ago now about the chocolate cake diet, whereby if you eat chocolate cake for breakfast, it will sort of kickstart your metabolism for the day, and then you can kind of eat what you want and you'll just burn it off. Complete load of nonsense, of course. It was a nice idea, but that isn't what this video is. Like about, I don't know, a week, 10 days ago or something, I made one of these carrot cake kits. That's a bit of a tongue twister, that one. And that's properly cheating. I quite like baking and stuff, bread, cakes and everything, but I really struggle with carrot cake. So when I want a carrot cake, I buy the kit and like properly cheat. And what's that got to do with training? Well, I've got this little abstract idea about using it to explain training and climbing in general. I was going to do it like, say, a week or 10 days ago or something, and I can kind of remember why, but for whatever reason I didn't do the video. But I'd made a cake, I'd shot some B-roll of it, that came out awful, it was rubbish, it was unusable really. The cake was good, and I was going to take some pictures of the cake and have my cake by my side for a bit of a prop, but I've eaten it long ago, it's long gone I'm afraid, so you'll have to make do with me pointing at that carrot cake kit then. But how does it fit in, right? Lockdown, loads of people have built home boards, put fingerboards up, training on rings, training on pull-up bars, doing whatever, and that's great, isn't it? Because we're a little bit limited at the moment. But it has led to a bit of an obsession about the minute details of training and how many kilograms this person can hold on a max hang, how long one person can stay on their board for, and all these kind of things. And I'm not sure if that's healthy or not. I benchmark my data like maybe a couple of times a year, something like that, and that's great, right, because it gives you a reference point, but I do view it as being largely irrelevant as to what other people can do, right? So I don't like to get too sucked into going onto Facebook forums and going, oh, what can you get for your max hang score as a body weight percentage, and etc etc etc. That's not to say I don't chat to my mates about it. People like Mike, who some of you will have met on my courses, he's got the same qualifications as me and stuff, and is properly into his training like I am. Give him a follow on Insta, Mike Nolan Climbing I think is his tag. Yeah, so I chat to him about training stuff like on a daily basis, to be honest, especially at the moment, because what else have we got to chat about? But there's so much more to climbing well, and if you're trying to climb hard, to climbing hard, than how much weight you can hang on a fingerboard, or how many pull-ups you can do with added weight, or how long you can spend on the board, all this kind of stuff. So cake, there's so much waffle, isn't there? Sorry about that. But cake, how does that fit in? Right, my little analogy here, if that's the right word. Let's take that carrot cake. The bulk of that carrot cake is like the spongy bit, isn't it? That's nothing to do with training in this analogy. What that is your climbing technique, okay? That's your footwork, that's your ability to twist and move, and actually I'm going to lump in like tactics and stuff there as well, so it's kind of the technique and tactics. That's the sponge itself, right? You can make quite a good cake with just sponge, can't you? I mean, it can be pretty flipping tasty, and how does that relate to climbing? Well, let's take that analogy as being tasty cake is the same as doing loads of really good climbing. So if you've got really good technique and good tactics, you can actually climb pretty well, can't you? Yeah, there's loads you can do. It's going to be a different grade for every person what that gets you to, right? But that is the bulk of cake, and that is the bulk of climbing. Carrot cake in the middle of it, you've got like that filling stuff, haven't you? Oh, so good, that sweet filling stuff. I could just eat like spoonfuls of that. In my mind, right, that's like the psychological stuff. That's being able to deal with, let's say, the fear of falling, just because that's a classic. There's so much more to climbing than just the fear of falling, but it's a big part of it. And how do you overcome that, and how are you happy to go out above gear, and the pressure of red pointing, that's psychological, isn't it? This is a massive subject. And it might only be really thin in the whole scheme of cake, but actually surface area wise, there's a lot of that filler, isn't there? And it sticks everything together, so it's massively important. So if you can have the sponge bit and the filler bit, that psychological type stuff, let's relate that to climbing, this analogy again. Oh great, so you can do all that climbing you did before, plus your head game sorted. That probably takes you up a bit higher, doesn't it? Brilliant. That's the bulk of a cake, isn't it? How nice is that cake when you've just got sponge and some filler? Nothing else necessary, is there? Okay, so it's got to tie into training somewhere, hasn't it? What goes on top of the cake? Well, it's training in general, isn't it, right? Well, training is a massive subject. So how does this fit into my analogy again? Because this is a short-ish video, right? The icing on top of that cake for me is all that conditioning kind of exercise stuff, and getting strong, larger muscle groups, not fingers, no real muscles in your fingers, it's all in your forearms, but I'm talking the big muscle groups, shoulders, core, all that kind of stuff. That's the icing, right? Again, you can be a really good climber if you've got all your technique and tactics sorted, all your psychological sorted, plus you've got strong muscle groups. Great, that's a really flipping good cake, isn't it? Is it like the perfect cake? No, when you go into that nice bakery, you're expecting a little bit more as well, aren't you? Carrot cake, you're expecting that little carrot. What's it made of? Is it marzipan? I'm not sure what it is, but you're expecting that little carrot on top of your cake, aren't you? And that really finishes it off. And for me, that carrot on top of the cake, the cherry on top of the cake, that's kind of finger strength for me. So that's hanging on your max hangs and doing your repeaters and getting this stuff dialed. Would you be excited if you bought a cake in a bakery and they just gave you that little carrot bit without the sponge and the icing? No, you'd be pretty disappointed. It wouldn't really be a real cake, would it? It would just be that tiny little thing off the top. And for me, that's climbing as well. You can have the strongest fingers in the world. Like, I literally mean you could be the strongest finger strength person in the world. If you haven't got loads of technique and tactics and you haven't built up those other muscle groups, that's not going to get you that far in climbing, is it? It's all about balance. That's the key to this little video about cake. It's all about balance. You've got to have good sponge, you've got to have good filler, you've got to have good icing, and you've got to have that little bit on top of the cake as well, the carrot in this case. So there you have it. That's my slightly abstract take on how cake represents climbing, okay? All those bits need to be there if you want to reach your potential, don't they? You have to consider all of that if you want to climb to your sort of genetic limit, if you like. You have to do the training, the finger strength. You have to have good technique and tactics, right? You can't have one of those areas missing and still have the perfect cake, can you? You can have a good cake, but you can't have the perfect cake. Remember the sizes though. Technique and tactics, that's the bulk. Psychological, still massive, and glues it all together. That's the filler in the middle, isn't it? Oh, so good, that bit. If you want to take it up a gear, you start training the larger muscle groups. And if you want to put the cherry on the top, that little carrot on top of the cake, that's your finger strength thing. But finger strength, useless without the rest of it. Let me know what you think. I think it's like a funny little idea, but I think there's a lot of truth to it as well. But yeah, I'd be really interested to hear your opinions. We can't always train the rest of it, right? Can we train psychological stuff now without being on the rock? Well, kind of you can. It's another subject, that. Can you train movement on a fingerboard? It's tricky. There's things you can do at home to improve coordination and stuff, but it's hard, isn't it? If you've got a board like this, you're going to be really lucky and you can still do all that stuff, can't you? But don't get sucked into finger strength, finger strength, finger strength. Far more to climbing hard than getting strong fingers. We all know someone who can train like a beast, but when it comes to climbing, it's just not at all reflected in their climbing ability. You don't want to be that person. You want to be that rounded package, don't you? So go and train on that fingerboard. Train hard because it's good at the moment, but don't forget the rest of it as well. Let me know your thoughts. Keen to hear them. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't clicked that like button, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button while you're there as well. Find us on Insta, find us on Facebook. You know the score. More videos coming up very soon.